So, it's the start of the tax year, and PhysEquip are really keen to help you get off to a flying start in April 2025. So, we are offering to cover your entire VAT on any technology purchased in this time, so the whole 20%. The reason we're doing this is because there's a lot going on in the world at the moment, a lot of uncertainty in the markets, and this can mean that people do hesitate or not want to spend money. However, we know that if you want this technology, the sooner you can get it in, the sooner it's going to be beneficial for you, for your clients, and the business. So we want to help build that momentum. It helps us as well keep moving things forward. We're already placing large orders, and we'd love to kick things off. So please get in touch. We'll cover all of your VAT for any order purchased in April 25, and we'd love to help you. Hello, welcome. Today I am joined by Matt Phillips, who's a sports therapist. You may recognise him for being the host of the Sports Therapy Association podcast, as well as the creator of Run Chat Live. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much. Really, I've loved these life stories and watched them regularly. I think we've got quite similar guests along the way, along the years we've done it. So it's really nice to be on the receiving end rather than hosting. It's lovely. Thank you.
Oh no, good. Well, when I was on your one the other week with Andy Hosgood, it's interesting to be on the other side of it as well, isn't it? Really, it is a different perspective. And when I was introducing you there, what would you define yourself as? We were speaking briefly there.
I think that's part of the problem, and it's been so interesting in the lead up to this, being forced to reflect a little bit and think, geez, life story, that's actually quite makes you really look inside. And the word I came up with, and I don't know if it's a bit of a cliche, but I think I like the word conduit. Whatever I've done in my life, it's been to disseminate information that I've kind of geeked up on and passed to people who are struggling not getting that information. So that's kind of whether it's been with runners themselves or with therapists who work with runners or just soft tissue therapists. Yeah, just disseminator of information, which somewhere along the line I realized I was apparently quite good at. And that's what I've done. Yeah, all my life basically has been that teaching / coaching, instructing in its many forms.
Well, what do you think when you say you're good at that? Like, what do you think those skills are to make you good at those things?
You know what? It's only now I'm older. One of the advantages of getting older is I can say something like, I think I'm quite good at that. Before, it's only been in this fifth decade of my life now that I've been able to admit that. But I think the more you look into trying to help other therapists and healthcare practitioners, you more you realize that some of the traits you're trying to help them with are traits that you've maybe born with thanks to genetics or something, or just the way you've lived your life. But essentially just being a bit of a I don't like saying chameleon because that says it's on purpose, but I think the most important thing in life is being able to change according to the individual you're with, whether that's a patient or a client or a clinician you're trying to help. And it doesn't come naturally. And it's not necessarily a game. It's not something you put on. I mean, you learn it that way if you look at things like motivational interviewing. And there's some great techniques of when to stop yourself from talking and how to phrase questions, which you can learn. But I think for some reason or another, maybe when I grew up or the environment I lived in, I just managed to do that. And when I have like guests after the show, we do a little debrief. The most common thing is, oh, you made us feel so relaxed. We forgot we were being filmed. You just made it so easy for us to talk. And I think that's what it's all about. I think healthcare, as you've had many guests talking on the show, and I love every time I hear it, it's about making the patient or client feel relaxed enough to open up and tell you how you're going to help them on their journey.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, and you do look at it and think, is that innate? Is that learned? And there's no one answer for everything, is it? I think there's definitely skills that you can learn on it. Also, people do have natural propensities to be, as Andy Hosgood's favourite word being curiosity, isn't it? Like that. If you've got that, then that's quite a helpful start.
I think it's so true. And I really just wanted to shout out for Phil, who you had on the show. Lerney, is it? Yeah, Phil Lerney. I mean, I really related to what he was saying about when he grew up in the pub and that, and how he was just born into that environment where he saw his dad talking to people, remembering names. There was that classic thing he said of where people were coming in the gym and he was trying to create client base, and he just went to reception and just looked out for their names on the computer, and then started a conversation with, "Hey, Jeff, isn't it? Bam, you're in." And it sounds so it's something you could sell on a course for a fortune, and deservedly so, because it doesn't come naturally to people. So I think I grew up fortunately with a family and the safety and security just to be like his teenage sons, who he says he can take anywhere, and within a few minutes they'll be talking to anybody without fear. I think that's the most healthiest thing. It's healthy to doubt yourself, obviously, and question yourself, but it's just having that confidence to introduce yourself and then listen to the other person and then show you're listening. So yeah.
Yeah. I think Phil has put that into a conference and course and made a fortune, actually. So I think he's
Well, it's
literally
good.
taken
I mean, it
that.
doesn't come naturally, it doesn't come naturally. And that's often, I think, one of the biggest skills which amazing clinicians and therapists lack. There could be, because everything in education these days is still like traditionally homed in on what you're doing with your hands or this and that, and the different diagnostics and the different kind of assessments. But it's getting better thanks to people like yourself and Andy and that. But it's still something which a lot of people aren't born with or didn't have the fortune to be kind of introduced within their ecosystem, and they need to be taught it. And it's what's missing from the train, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's sometimes I think people can take it for granted of having those conversations. Like Andrew McCauley stuff's brilliant with
Amazing,
how he
yeah.
talks about communication, and it's funny, isn't it? Because it's like does feel like that's now becoming more common and people being more used to talking about that. Whereas even now, you look at it's all dominated by clinical CPD, clinical education, whereas it's very different to that.
You know what? I think it's because of what you guys, and I loved the episode I had with you and Andy, and it had such an effect on me. One of the joys of being a podcast host, and I'm sure you appreciate as well, is you just learn. I do it every week. We've done the Sports Therapy Association podcast since COVID ended in the sense we were allowed to go back to work. So last night was episode 232 weeks in a row, so nearly 5 years. And every week I take so much away from the guest, and I love it. It honestly sends shivers down my spine. We're doing an episode at the moment working with athletes with disability, and it's just mind-blowing, the stuff which other people will come out with if you allow them to open up and talk about it. So the one you did, which is about collaboration, I've really been even putting it onto my own course now. It was just a word which summarized so well what I was trying to get across, in the sense that have the confidence just to talk to other people about your business. And I think that's why communication is becoming more accepted now and people are open to it, because to communicate, you've got to share your own feelings, haven't you? You've got to open up a bit. You mustn't still be that kind of like pre-COVID competition down the road. Don't talk to them, it's scary. So it really resonated what you and Andy were saying about collaboration. It's so important. You've got so much to gain from just talking to other people about your problems, even if they've got a business down the road from you.
Yeah, I think it is. It's like being confident and comfortable to be vulnerable is difficult to do it. But as soon as you start doing it, if you're with the right people around that are also confident enough to be able to respond and listen and not judge, then that's right. But ultimately, everyone is, if they're not responding well to that, they've got their own issues of vulnerability and fear and all of those things. So yeah, I think the sooner you can do it, it does open up a lot of being able to just connect with people. So for me, like, how did you get involved in this area? Like, is your background's interesting. Like, you have got quite a varied past.
Yeah, it's so tricky. I mean, the common theme seems to be me leaving England and going to live abroad for the sun. But I think when I was looking back at that and thinking, why so many times did I start a degree and then say, oh, I'm just going to take a year off to go and experience Spain because I'm learning the language as part of it. And I did. I started a degree in leisure and tourism because from a very early age, I realized that basically I loved gym, I loved health, I loved helping people. So being that conduit. I left school. I cocked up my A levels a little bit, probably because I was getting to know girls in the sixth form rather than studying. So that was part of my kind of learning about people and things. So I didn't go straight into university, but when I did, I ended up doing leisure and tourism because I'd had a couple of years out working in gyms and thought, right, I want to set up the biggest health club there is, and I probably want to do it abroad because I like living and working abroad. So that was the idea, but after a year, I said to my tutor, oh, you know what? I've been learning Spanish, love Spain. I'm just going to go and live there for a year to really perfect the language. And then I'll come back and continue. Never did. It was in North London. Ended up staying in Madrid for about 4 years. Then I came back and I couldn't do another degree because at that time, because I'd already given up a year at university, they said, you only got 2 years grant left. This is when there were still grants. So I ended up doing an H&D in human biology, which was amazing. I wanted to do dietetics because I studied that in Spain. So, but the only one I could do, which was close to what I was interested in, was human biology, which was fantastic. There was kind of, it was a little bit too much into the kind of microbiology, and suddenly it was all Dolly the sheep era. So I was suddenly in a lab in a white coat doing genetical tests and stuff. And it was all, wow, this isn't really what I want to do. So guess what? Hey, I ended up going back to Spain again and working back in gyms and also teaching English and just basically again being that conduit, which is what I loved doing. And then eventually, after a series of going abroad and staying within health and fitness and practicing my own passion, which was running and martial arts and just living the life, I came back and started working with my family. My brother had already started, far more responsible, far more English, stayed in England all that time and opened up his own clinic with his wife at that time. And I slipped into that quite well because I had a load of experience, and I'd already been through the massage and sports therapy routes of diplomas and certification and stuff. And that's when the gait analysis really kicked off, because I was working with runners. My martial arts stopped because we had a change of instructors and they were doing, I don't know, just shin kicks and stuff I wasn't really into. And so we were concentrating more on the running. And that's when I discovered kind of the world of, well, at that time, myths and misconceptions. And that was the first kind of bout of my modern kind of outlook on education, where it was kind of 2013. There was a few of us like the Jack Chews and that, and Adam Meakins and Ian Griffiths and all these people who kind of appeared at the early therapy expos and were on Twitter. And it was a wonderful time. But I wrote about it recently in the MSK mag about how I look back and think I feel a little bit guilty in a way that we were all, or I was definitely spending most of my time thinking I was helping educate people, but really just shouting from a soapbox about how everything they believed was wrong and not true. Because this was the era when we realized we were moving away from the structuralist ideas, and we were all being kind of swayed by Mosley and Butler and Explain Pain, and even modern people like Mike Stewart, No Pay Mike. And there was so much amazing information coming around. You had Ian Griffiths challenging the concept of overpronation, and you had all of the amazing podiatrists like Craig Payne and that kind of challenging barefoot running. And it was just an era of saying, no, it's not like that. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. And I was happy to do this. I was a great conduit. So I was quite happy to stand in front of a stage in front of, I don't know, 100, 200 people I didn't know and start giving this information out with probably at that time a little bit too much cynicism and sarcasm and kind of big crosses. And I realize now, reflecting back, which is what the article was about, that that's not education. That wasn't a very healthy time. And I worry that that was probably the beginning of polarization. And my kind of reincarnated course now is very much more about the skill it takes to help therapists change and evolve without making them feel stupid, or that the £3,000 they spent on their studies actually gave them quite a lot of stuff which is questionable. And I think that is where we really need to be concentrating as an industry. And it does wind me up. I am known on social media for not enjoying any kind of mockery of other therapists, or maybe it's just my sensitivity, but I can't stand it when you got therapists with somebody else behind them and they're doing this kind of normally a chiropractic old move, maybe from 5 years ago, and they're in front going, and I'm just thinking, mate, this, for me personally, I'm oversensitive with that. I don't think you're helping future therapists. You're either going to just get a bunch of people who are going to jump on the bandwagon and laugh with you with all the emoticons, or you're going to scare a bunch of well-meaning therapists who are still doing that stuff, which we all did. If you've been in the industry for more than 10, 15 years, we all said things years ago, which now we wouldn't kind of like do at all. We should be doing anyway. So my bag at the moment, whether it's through the podcast and the guests I involve, is how we can improve healthcare. We know there's a lot that's been done wrong, because but at the time we didn't have the information we have now. And finally now we're talking more about the biopsychosocial model without just throwing that out, because that's kind of a bit trendy now. We've got more to replace what was wrong. Before it was just about this is wrong, this doesn't do that. You can't do defamation in kind of fashion. Haven't you read the Chowdhury paper and all this sort of stuff? We were coming out with all this stuff, but we weren't replacing it with anything. And now I think we've got an awful lot we can replace it with when we start talking about therapeutic alliance, when we start talking about collaboration and the whole communication thing. So So I can't remember what the original story was, but yeah, that's how my career has been. It's been an awakening to how much misinformation there was out there kind of around that time. And now coming out the other end thinking we need to be better at helping change healthcare. It's very kind of early 2000s to laugh at other therapists. We shouldn't be doing that because we know the worst thing you can do to a patient is to kind of like belittle the person they've just come from. You wouldn't say, oh, that physio didn't know what they're talking about, because we know the patient's going to go, oh, hold on, who are you then? You're kind of mocking the person I just paid money to. But when we're teaching other clinicians, we think it's kind of okay. We can belittle other people and write these posts and slag them off and call everything BS. I hate seeing the word BS in posts. Again, probably my sensitivity, because there's no such thing as BS. It's just something that hasn't evolved. But I'm going to close my mouth now because I'm just going on for a rant.
Yeah, I think I do think the point's a good one. I think as soon as anyone is like negative in any context, whether it's like in an interview talking about previous people, it's always quite weird when people talk negatively about their former boss. And I'm just like, right, well, you'd probably be doing that about me soon. And then it's the same, yeah, the same with anything. Tradesmen, when they're, oh, who's done your walls, mate? Oh, you got, oh, and it's just like straight away I'm just like, oh my god, this, yeah, I've lost interest in all of that. So no, I do agree and understand with that. Like, where's your interest in the kind of the journalistic approach to things, I guess, come from?
Journalistic in what sense?
Well, I think just like you talked about writing, like I was talking about maybe production, maybe journalistic's the wrong thing, but like podcasting, talking, all of these things are about sharing, growing, rather than more the actual hands-on clinical stuff.
I think it's come from even my first job when I couldn't get into university straight away, and I started work. I did a YMCA training instructor certificate in Tottenham Court Road, and ended up working in a gym, just on the gym floor. Suddenly, with the information I had, even though my boss was saying, we've got these Nautilus machines because everyone's supposed to be in and out in 30 minutes. That's why we've got the circuit, mate. You're spending far too long talking to people and helping people. Straight away, even at 18, I was thinking then, but hold on, some people need their hand held a little bit more. Some people need a bit more of an explanation. I know you, and that's why probably I've never made money in my life, because he had the right idea. He had to maximize turnover inside his little gym. And there was me being a pain in the ass by kind of like helping people too much, you know, and giving them ideas to be self-sufficient and that sort of stuff. So I think it's just a natural thing. And so that meant that when I did, every patient I saw, because I feel I was listening to them. That's how I direct my own practice according to what they said. It just turned into a case of sharing new information with other people. So by the time I did get into, for example, the running gait, we were one of the first companies on the South Coast to actually do a full body gait analysis. And this is before your kind of running shops started doing their shoe gait analysis. So in fact, about 2 years after, so we started about 2010. And then 2 years after is when the gait or the running shop started doing gait analysis just from the foot down to sell shoes. So a lot of people kind of said to us, wow, you're in trouble now because, you know, you've got all this competition from these well-known shops down the road. But I kind of realized that what they were selling was not evidence informed or based or anything. And if anything, it was going to help the sort of stuff which I was talking about, because they were just perpetuating the myths, which wasn't going to help people. So they were still selling shoes thinking this is going to cure all your running problems. And I knew that it wasn't. And 50% of their customers were not going to be satisfied. So again, it gave me something to talk about. And that's where Run Chat Live got set up, because I thought there's a load of information here that I want to kind of give to people and put where people can reference it, because there wasn't much else around at the time. And then also through that and connections we made through the gait analysis, then I wrote for a few magazines as well, and also in America for Runners Connect. So the name started getting out a little bit more. And then at that, I was always another trait of mine, which I'm not sure how it's affected my career, was I never want to do what everyone else is doing. I've always kind of moved away from the pack, which has annoyed quite a few people sometimes. I'd voluntarily not want to be in the first 15 rugby because it was just all too much pack mentality, and suddenly it was us against them, and I hated that. So I'd go down to the second 15, which obviously made me a massive enemy with any sports master or anything. So it was the same thing with podcasts. When Facebook started, Facebook Live, I was like, I'm not going to get on screen and start talking about this and that. It's ridiculous. Everyone's doing it. Everyone's got something to say. And then I ended up going over and helping set up one of the first gait labs in Kenya, in Nairobi. And we went over there, and it was just again, just a fantastic experience of seeing what Kenya and Kenyan running and everything is really like compared to what we hear over here and read about in books and stuff. And that's when I came back and thought, I was in clinic on a Sunday morning and it was a bit quiet. And I thought, I've actually got something quite interesting to say now about my time in Kenya. And I just thought, okay, I'll do a little 30-minute. I've got no one in the next hour. So I just put the Facebook Live on and did something about whatever. And then people started listening. I did that turned into a regular half-hour spot first thing on Sunday morning in clinic. And I realized that people were liking it, enjoying it. And it seemed kind of a more gentle way to get good information out there without slagging everything off. So that kind of developed and turned into One Chat Live podcast. And then I realized that, okay, I've got a few things I could say, but there's so many great minds out there. And I just realized I could use podcasts to, again, help put out the information of guests I had. And I had the pleasure of speaking to so many wonderful guests from around the world. And then my next challenge was, I thought, this is all very nice, but we're losing that physical contact, which is why I put One Chat Live conference together, where suddenly, and this is probably the highlight of my life, apart from obviously wedding and kids, just in case anyone's listening, but flying, for example, Derek Griffin from Ireland, and then Jeff Asculia from Canada, and Simon Bartold from Australia, and Chris Johnson from America, and getting them all to come together to Brighton. People who they'd worked on papers with and talked with, thanks to kind of social media, for maybe a decade, or they never actually shook hands or gave each other a hug. And I just remember sitting back and seeing like Derek Griffin and Chris Johnson having a hug and something, and just thinking, wow, this is just amazing. And so that was wonderful as well. And that kind of continued with the Sports Therapy Association podcast, just bringing amazing people from around the world together to give this information to help therapists. And yeah, so that's what I love doing. That's where it comes from. Again, it's just a desire to help people get quality information through whatever medium.
Yeah. How did the Kenyan opportunity come up?
That was just a fortune. Again, it's once you start writing for a few magazines and you got the website there. I think it was it after? I think it was after the first One Chat Live conference in Brighton as well. The guy who was from Kenya but via Tasmania, and he had family in Brighton, so he just you can imagine that the email I got through saying, "Hi, we are a company in Nairobi. We would like you to come over and work with us." And even my wife at the time was like, "Seriously, are you sure this isn't some dodgy email and they're gonna wake up in a bar somewhere?" And it was like, well, no, I'll write back, see what it's about. And it was legit, and so he was looking to, great entrepreneur, George Parks, and he was looking to set up the first gait analysis shop in Nairobi. Obviously he had tapped to runners who were going to be coming down from the major running camps and things around there. He was taking a bit of a gamble because the problem with being in Kenya is getting stock. It's just not easy, whether it's shoes or Garmin or anything running related. But I went over there. He was interested in setting something which had longevity, and he realized, or he put faith in me that what I was delivering was going to help runners, because we were giving evidence-informed stuff rather than just you need this shoe or that shoe. And he had the money, because it was a startup business. So we got the best 3D at the time, motion metric stuff, and I trained all his staff up. And it's still running and going well. I mean, it still is. I think a few other shops might have opened up, but with the information he's got and the information he's putting out there, it's still pretty quality. And he's worked with some great running coaches, and some athletes come down to see him and stuff. So yeah, it was happy days. And again, the old imposter syndrome, which hits all of us, coming back from that now, whenever I'm feeling a little bit, what have I got to do? I've got that. I did that, and it worked. So it's always nice. It's a nice little pat on the back sometimes when something like that comes along.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a real achievement. And in terms of putting that conference on, then how did you pull all that together and get those people together?
I just paid £500 here and there to fly them over. It was just a bit of a gamble, really, because I had no money, really. I don't know how. I just thought, I need to get 100 bums on seats. If I do that at this price, I'm going to make this much money. I wasn't expecting to make a profit, which has kind of been the downfall of my look on life and moving around the world. But I just wanted to be able to get these people together so I could afford. I think I had something like 16 speakers, and maybe 11 of them, 10 or 11 of them cost at least £400 to £500 to fly over, as well as accommodation. But imagine, I mean, I don't know, you'll be able to appreciate it, and some of your listeners will appreciate it. You know that famous scene, I can't remember who painted it, but it was like James Dean and Elvis and Marilyn Monroe sitting around a bar somewhere. I can't remember who painted it, but it's just a classic kind of like, I had the same scene in Brighton in like the Premier or Travel Lodge or something down West Street, where I just sat back for a second. You had Simon Bartold there with a pint. You had Mike James next to him. I think Tom Goom had just come in from a run with Derek Griffin. And you had like JF Asculio at the end saying, I have to go to bed now because I need to go to bed at 8:30. And I was just sitting back thinking, this is that version of an image, bringing these people together to spend a couple of days together. But it was, and I had my mum doing the catering. She was doing cakes, which people still talk about. It was done in the college I was working in while I was teaching biology. So I got that for a little bit cheaper. And it was just a venture. And it was just, I think it was done at the right time. I think in 2019, people wanted to actually see these people for real. People getting a bit worried about where the future was going in terms of just digital and online. So people were willing to spend a bit of money. There's only about 100 people, but they still talk about it these days. And it actually, I'm told, and now I can like to admit it, I think it did set the scene for a lot more conferences, because also we filmed it. I was worked with Jack Chew and the PhysioMats podcast team, who were kind of like growing at that time. They filmed it, and then I put it out so people who couldn't make it could watch the catch up, which I think was quite new at the time as well. So nowadays everything is kind of like filmed and you can buy it and watch it in your own time. So it set the scene for quite a few different ways of putting these conferences together. And also it did quite a lot for multidisciplinary care, which I have to kind of admit a little bit more, because suddenly on the stage, and we did a Q&A where we just had 13 or 14 of the speakers all on stage. So you had podiatrists, physios, chiropractors, and in the audience you had massage therapists. That's why I met Anna Maria Mazzieri, the ST School, who the GATE course is in association with. And I remember this fantastic debate during Q&A, which is where Anna Maria, fantastic, wonderful Italian lady with balls bigger than anyone I know, stood up and started challenging Jack, and actually said, Jack, you kind of poo-poo fascia and you poo-poo this and hands-on and blah, blah, this. But how do you know? Where's your evidence for some of these things? And Jack was kind of a bit, whoa, who is this crazy Italian woman? I didn't know I was in store for this. And I think he'll talk about it now. But that started quite an amazing dialogue and communication between the physio community and the massage community. And nowadays, a lot of the advancing we're doing and seeing in multidisciplinary care is because people like Jack, who represents, you know, a fair chunk of the physiotherapy trade in the UK, is talking and collaborating with people like Anna Maria Mazzieri, and is opening up his mind to things which maybe back in the day he wouldn't have done because he was quite physiocentric. So I like to think that that conference did spawn quite a lot of embracing of multidisciplinary care, because everybody was in the same room and had nowhere to hide. You couldn't hide behind, you know, 118 characters, whatever it was. You were there face to face.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that point about challenge is a really good one, isn't it? Because it should be delivered in a you know, a positive way, rather than, like you were saying, that the negativity or the, you know, the slating of other things there. But how often do you see that being welcomed or even delivered in that capacity?
I don't know, live has kind of gone, hasn't it? It's a real problem, I think, with education at the moment now. Anna Maria, actually, Mazzieri, the ST School, she persuaded me to bring back my GATE course, because when I first delivered my kind of how's your running courses, again, it was very much, it was a little bit kind of ahead of its time in the fact that therapists were not ready to be told that a lot of what they were doing was a bit kind of, you know, you're not breaking down scar tissue. A lot of this stuff is probably working, but not for the reasons you think. And we're not saying stop doing what you're doing, but it's just, if I think it was Paul Ingram who said, if you know how something works, then you can make it work better, sort of thing. And that was the kind of message I was trying to deliver. But nowadays, thanks to educators like Anna Maria and also Mike Grice and other people, there are some kind of non-allied health professional courses out there which are delivering more up-to-date quality information, and level 5 can actually mean something if you are learning more about communication and that sort of stuff, as opposed to just learning another kind of orthopedic test or something, or some other ways, amazing way of increasing range of movement. So I'm finding now on the most recent GATE courses I've had, that one, there's physio. The last one I did at Jack's place in Manchester, there's a physio, there was a sports science masters, there was a massage therapist, sports therapists. So it's a wonderful example of multidisciplinary care, and a wonderful chance for us all to realize, sat down, and when we're doing discussions, that if we really put it patient-centric, then everybody here has a part to play, depending on the patient. and it might change during their rehab journey. So it is lovely when we get live, but we struggle. I think anyone who's trying to put on live courses realizes that there's such an abundance of online stuff out there. Some of it good, a lot of it bad, and there's promises out there and clever marketing, and people are sadly moving away. Just in general life now, people don't do things live anymore. It's always catch up, and we're all guilty of it. You know, how was the last time we watched live TV? It's always just switch on Netflix or Amazon or something. So, and it's a shame. I think it's going to bite us on the bum because it's slowing down our development, because you get so much from live, which is why, again, you guys talking about the clinic and getting people together in Manchester for your kind of collaboration thing is so important, because what you can gain from an hour with somebody face to face is huge. If your job is working with people and being face to face with people, then obviously your learning environment has to be involved being face to face with people. But it's just it's where we live, isn't it? Everything now is digital, and it's a bit of a shame, I think, without sounding too old.
Yeah, well, I think as well, even just the fact like we did a webinar yesterday, but most people will watch it on catch up because everyone's just busy, aren't they? Like you're busy, you're always on. And I think stepping out of that and going to something where you turn your phone off, you're in the moment, you're in that is so important. And like even for me now, I'll actively not look at my phone early in the morning. You're just trying to just be present in that. I find it very hard, but it's helpful because otherwise you're straight into it again, and it's just not good from a burnout, from a stress, anxiety perspective. And it's the same in your business, whether you're a business owner or not. Getting out of your environment, I'm a massive fan of it. I think it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard though. I mean, it's a very strange world we live in at the moment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is hard, but I would also say is that you can make it happen. Like I'm a big advocate of is that look, you've got to do it because otherwise you can be full. Everyone's more than full-time working, really, aren't they? If you asked anyone, you feel like you're back to back to back. You're doing this all the time, and it's like at some point you have to stop, reflect, and think, actually, is this being effective in what you're doing?
I think that's a really important point, actually, and that's why I love having guests on, like thinking of people like Joe Turner, for example, and other people who've had on the show have raised the point that in healthcare, I think this applies to physiotherapy as well as sports therapy and sports massage. We need to move away from this idea that we can only help our clients or patients face to face, because we are going to burn out with that. And I think that's why maybe a lot of our listeners are too busy to tune in on a Tuesday at 8 o'clock for our weekly podcast, because they are just seeing clients back to back. And we had a guy, I can't remember. Is it you? He was on your show as well. Frank Benedetto, is it?
Oh yeah, Frank, love Frank.
You know, and again, he kind of came up. He was trying to show how the the limitations there are if you're only basing your model on seeing somebody face to face, and how easy it is these days to actually look at how you should be looking after somebody and supporting them during the time they're not seeing you in clinic. And he was always talking about bringing this technology together with the free apps that are out there. So when you are seeing someone face to face, you're also supporting someone else, because they're going to feed back information to you about their sleep, about their nutrition, about their exercise. And really, we should be doing this because we know that it's what the clients are doing, in between our sessions, which is where they really need our support. So I think somehow that's got to be enforced. There's so many great clinicians out there, but they are only earning money when they're with the person face to face, and that's a mistake. Somehow I think that chain needs to be broken. If you manage to do that, then yeah, you'll have more time for yourself. You'll be able to look after yourself more. You won't feel that burden of responsibility, because you'll be like Joe Turner and Joanne Elphinston were saying, coaching in the true sense takes a lot of that responsibility off your shoulders, and that tired sensation of responsibility. Because if you're arriving to a plan with your client, with your patient, then there's none of this stress of, oh, they haven't done their exercises, it hasn't worked, because everything you arrange is with them. It's all a joint decision, which is what coaching is supposed to be. So there's, again, I'm listening to myself and thinking there's so many ways that clinicians can have a better life. It's just getting this information to them, which again is a challenge.
Yeah, I think Frank's stuff, I love Frank's philosophy and his directness and his passion for what he's talking about, and he's very bold with things. And I think it's really interesting from the American perspective that it's very, it's still similar, and there's differences in healthcare systems, but it is very similar. I think he's a real pioneer in like the way that he talks about things. My feelings, and I'd be interested to get your perspective, is that in this country, the people will look at that, and even forward-thinking people will be like, "Oh, it's a bit, feel a bit uncomfortable with doing that." Like, I feel like I want to have that connection with the client, and it's like I had a conversation with a client with someone today who's young, very dynamic, very good business. And even it's like, this is what I like. I don't really feel comfortable with that. And it's not wrong. It's just that's what is inbuilt over here, is actually to have someone on a subscription or something different than something else, whatever that may be, does feel like I'm conning them here. And I've actually I really enjoyed Frank's quote that I've got, because it's in the selling chapter of the book, and it's all about anyone who's struggling with selling in healthcare is that they fundamentally just don't believe in the product that they're talking about. They don't believe in what they're offering if they move away from it. And I think that's the case for anything, whether it's healthcare or not. If you're like, yeah, well, it's going to be this amount, oh, this shockwave, it's going to cost you that. And it's like, who's going to buy into that? Whereas if you've got conviction, you're working with them, talking to them and explaining, understanding, listening, all of these things. And then you're giving them the option. This is what we do. Then it's like it's a partnership that you're doing it with. But you've got to have that belief, or else why would anyone buy it? And they shouldn't buy it if you don't believe in it.
Yeah, it's ironic. The irony is the people who are really good in healthcare, who really empathize and genuinely aren't looking for the limelight. Like recently in this series we're doing on working with athletes with disabilities, there's two amazing therapists, Carla Bickerstaff and Jenny Lane. And they've just, well, Jenny was the soft tissue therapist for Team UK in Canada recently at the 2025 Invictus Games. And they're both so mild and so meek. And I purposely challenged them on I started trying to say, what do you think your best qualities are? And that was impossible. So I said, okay, let's do it this way. You tell me what her best qualities are. And even that was difficult for them. And I think that's part of being such a good, I don't know, I think a lot of being a good therapist is you're not looking for the limelight. You recognize that you're not fixing somebody. You recognize that all you're really doing is giving that person support and comfort and the right environment to talk. You're showing empathy, you're understanding what they're talking about, you're giving them time, the space, the sensitivity, and then you're facilitating them. There's a beautiful quote from last night which is on my mind since they said it. Was obviously for athletes with disabilities, a lot of the time, I mean, especially if they're serving or ex-armed forces, some of the injuries are horrific and it changes their identity and everything. And they feel that they're broken, especially, when they've come from a very active life. And one of the things which the therapist was talking about was that it's helping that person realize that they're not broken, which often they'll use language like this. You're just working with a different form of your body now. Your body's changed. Okay, so we're going to be doing different things. In fact, you're going to be better at doing some things which you've never even done before. So when they find themselves doing the skeleton in the Invictus Games, head first down this slope, something they wouldn't have dreamed of doing even when they were totally 100% able-bodied, suddenly they realize, wow, it's true. I am doing new things now with this body, which I wouldn't have dreamed of doing before. And that's just it sounds so simple, but that can set someone up for life if you just use the right words and the vocabulary and realize that they're not broken. It's just a different form of yourself. So, but I think the people who manage to do this are happy sitting in the shadows. And I can understand what you're saying. They're not natural salespeople. They're not going to want to put their prices up. So this is where I think sometimes good management comes into it, and also mentors. On podcasts, we're always talking to therapists about chatting to people like yourself and Andy, people who will take you for a walk around the block, which is what I had when I was a personal trainer. I remember my manager took me around the block because at David Lloyd, basically they said, right, you're all charging £35 an hour. We're putting it up to £45 an hour. And I was like, I can't do that. That's just ridiculous. And he said, come for a little walk with me. And he was a great salesperson. I didn't admire him on a lot of other levels because he was a very good manager and I just didn't have the manager head. But he walked around with me and just said, I don't remember what he said, but he just made me feel so relaxed. By the time I came back, I was like, shit, yeah, I'm worth £45 an hour. Absolutely. And for someone like me, who was the same as these other therapists, I hated the idea of charging my clients more. He managed to say it in the right way. So I think maybe that's what good therapists need, is they need somebody who can have that conversation with, who can say the right words, and then suddenly they do charge a price which is worth their value. Because doing it yourself, working alone, yeah, if you're a good therapist, it's going to be very challenging, like you say, really hard.
Yeah, I think that external thing is really important, and that's why I think people like Andy Hosgood really helpful for challenging that, asking good questions and getting you to do it. And we do it. I want, that's one of the roles that I see. That certainly with me, I've done what I do for quite a long time, and going to see clients and just asking them about their prices, and you just, when you hear it for the level of these people, it's just like talking to them about that and just say, where's that come from? What the experience level of some of these people is incredible, and they're charging significantly less than someone else who's maybe very savvy on promoting themselves. And that's nothing wrong with that either. It's just also trying to almost encourage people and say, just think about this stuff, and just, are you at the level where you want to be able to deliver the service? Because I think flipping it onto that and saying, look, are you able to, in our instance, we're talking about buying equipment. They're not in a position to buy equipment because they're not charging enough to justify it, even if they want it or not. So I think challenging those beliefs is a real key component in this. And that's why I think getting people talking, getting people in the same room, just having conversations. It doesn't need to be, I'm lecturing you on this topic. It's speaking to other people and thinking, God, they're charging that. God, I could do that. That I'm massively at the power of like the group mentality of how we can all push each other up and just learn from each other. Because I think it is a particular problem here, and it needs to get solved, or else the whole industry is working at this level when it should be way up here. So, like, well, where do you see the future of it going? Which is, it's a big question, but from a conference perspective, we've covered quite a few topics there. From just in terms of the growth of stuff with Frank Benedetto, all of this, like, where do you see what's your aspirations for the sector?
I hope, and it's something we're kind of working on. I think we need to go back. I think maximizing face-to-face time and opportunities for people to do face-to-face time and collaboration and networking, as well as having quality speakers. I've always kind of said that at conferences, a lot of the success you get as a therapist visiting is not just listening to the speaker, that's part of it, but it's just networking with the other people around you and fellow therapists and collaborating in that sense. So what I want to try and see if I can be involved in is putting on more regional events across the country, which are cheaper, splitting them up like 6 or 7, which are easy accessible to a therapist. So it's just down the road, it's less of a price, and they can get along to that, and just taking advantage of both that, put on some great speakers for them, which we can do, but allow them to collaborate, meet up with each other, share some ideas, open up some insecurities. And that's, I think, what empowers people to walk away, and then they can pass that on to their clients. Because I truly believe, that if you, in most cases, if you choose healthcare as a way of life, you've already got some fantastic qualities. You want to help people. You're not going to make a fortune. As soon as you start making a fortune, generally it means somewhere I don't know, it's not inversely, but the more money you tend to make in healthcare, it's a bit questionable, but you can make a lot more than you're currently making, if you kind of collaborate with other clinicians and realize your worth, and also just put into effect ways of helping patients, which is going to actually help them. And you get a lot of things. I always say on the course, a lot of the time therapists think that they're doing great stuff because they're confirmation bias. They only remember the times that what they're doing has worked, and they're not keeping the right kind of tracks on the people who haven't come back, or they're just kind of ignoring them and putting them under the carpet. So what I try and promote is that people do start looking at the clients that don't come back, the times that when they're not successful, and just basically be more critical of themselves. Because once you focus on that, then you're going to open your mind to, well, maybe I'm not as great as I thought I was, which is sometimes a problem, and I need to kind of change it. And there are answers out there, as more than anyone, having someone come into your business and have a look and make some changes, you can do very well, but you've got to have the confidence and the ability to make those changes. And behavior change, it's the same for clients, it's the same for therapists. Behavior change is really tricky, really hard work, but there are methods out there, but we've got to talk more to each other, be open to it. So yeah, localized stuff, getting people face to face, trying as much as we can to be less dependent on online CPD, and which probably, I mean, most therapists have probably got 5 or 6 on their hard drive they haven't even watched yet because they're just paying for them, piling them up, and they're living a life where they haven't got time. So, which is another advantage of doing things live. You do it, it's there. You're not just putting it on your computer and never really watching it. Or so, yeah, that's the direction I like it. And I think, you know, when I meet people like yourself and other guests on the show, it can be done. You know, it can be done. There's so much quality information out there and amazing educators, people who aren't looking to make a fortune. They genuinely just want to help healthcare. So if we can get them all together at different places around the country at the right time and encourage people to come out to see them live and talk to each other, I think, yeah, I mean, I'm inspiring myself just talking about it. I think there is a lot of work we can do to help people in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's big opportunities, and it's a really exciting time, and it's like that. This is the time to do it, be positive, and how we can look forward. So what would your advice be for people either new to the industry considering it, or even established people?
I think it's get involved in an association, a professional association of some form, or a group that does support you. There will have to be a charge of some form. I mean, it's slightly different for non-allied health professionals because there's no regulation or something. We haven't got kind of the equivalent of what physiotherapists have got. Although a lot of allied health professionals feel that the support they apparently get from their governing bodies isn't that helpful. But I think the most important thing is, belong to an association that does support you, that is looking after you, that provides you chances to collaborate, that listens to you, that you feel safe to talk to openly, who are there when you need them. And then, and this applies a lot to kind of non-allied health professionals, because often a lot of people are working by themselves. They're not in a multidisciplinary clinic, so it's even more of a reason to work with an association. And then everything we've talked about, where you do need that mentorship, you need those conversations, you need that kind of inspiration and belief in yourself. You should be getting that from your association. And what it shouldn't be, because unfortunately there are associations out there which are charging you a fortune, and you're paying sometimes like £100-200 a month, and you're not getting anything back. You've got to stop and think, am I each week, am I feeling stronger as a person and more capable thanks to the association I'm paying? Are they really helping me? And I mean, Sports Therapy Association was created for that back in 2013 or something, and it was because Gary, who you know, he just wanted, his main goal, his business plan was, I never want any of my members to feel alone or by themselves, and everything was built around that. And everything we've done since that, including the Sports Therapy Association podcast, our presence at Therapy Expo since the beginnings, from when it started, it's all been there to support members and to give them somewhere to work together. So that's what I'd recommend. But just watch out where you do join. Make sure it really is somebody who's got your best interest at heart and are not going to kind of add something to your monetary problems and expenses. It shouldn't cost that much. It should really be a case of what members pay you is then pumped back into members. We're a non-profit association for a reason. We're not selling courses on the side. Sports Therapy Association is just about everything we get from membership, which is very low, we just pump back into it. And that's the way it should be, really, to truly help healthcare providers.
I think you and Gary and the team do a really good job of doing that, and it's very evident to me, having seen you at Therapy Expo and being next to you on it. The people you get on there, I really believe in that. They've got the best interest for the industry. They're not pushing a product. They're not trying to do that, or even if they are, it's still ethically done, and it's done in the right way of trying to advance things, which is great. So no, I think it's really, really impressive. Like, how did the podcast start then? How did you get involved with doing that?
I already had One Chat Live going, so I had experience in that. Did that for about 5 or 6 years, which was just about trying to help runners and therapists who work with runners. But then the Sports Therapy Association podcast purely came out of COVID, because there was all of these questions and things floating around. So, do I need gloves? Do I need a mask? Am I allowed to work yet? What does it mean here? Only allied health professionals can work and not us, although we've got one association saying, or organization saying, we can work. And it was all very confusing. So suddenly we just had a meeting, myself and Gary and a couple of other people, and I just suddenly thought, well, how about a podcast? How about we start answering some of these questions? So it started that really. And I remember one episode, it was myself and Adam Meekins and Mike James just talking about COVID and coming out of it and some of the questions that weren't answered yet and that. And I think very early on, Jack was there talking about imposter syndrome, which was lovely because it's everything which a lot of therapists were feeling then, even more heightened than coming out of COVID. And then it just eventually, once, you know, the COVID, as far as returning to therapy went, it was kind of less of a topic. Then I just suddenly thought, wow, let's get some guests along here and on the show. And fortunately, because of the networking I've done with One Chat Live and various other things, then yeah, I've just managed to get some amazing people give up their Tuesday evenings, both in the UK and abroad. I've had people from Australia, Pete Maliaris, and we did a tendon special joining at like 6 a.m. Going, yeah, sure, let's do it. And that's just, I mean, I love it. I feel so lucky that these people do say yes to me. But I mean, again, the biggest thing I want to do is, again, I just want to get their information out to more people. We've been on about 2,000 downloads for forever, and it's tricky. And this year I'm trying to, in fact, one interesting thing I've done, which I forgot to mention to you, is I've decided now after 232 weeks, I'm not going to have, well, I'll probably have a few, but I'm stopping looking for guests because it's been on my mind that every week I almost feel guilty because we do an amazing week with Michelle Lyons on female pelvic health or something. And it's just like, and then in 7 days, I've got someone else. And I feel like I'm eclipsing the information that's just come the week before by having someone else who's equally doing something incredible. So I've decided what we're going to do now, after this month of working with athletes with disability, is I'm just inviting therapists, and we're booked up now for probably until mid-May, which is lovely. Again, we're just getting real life clinicians, some from the STA and some from other places, just to come in, and they've all chosen an episode which they're going to reflect on. So we're going to do months of just talking about past episodes. We've got so many episodes which affected the clinician and changed their way of working, because that's going to do two things for me. It's going to encourage people to reflect, and also it's going to on past episodes, which I don't want to disappear, and also it's going to show how in the episodes there is stuff there which you can start putting into practice tomorrow, you know. And that's something which is amazing about all the guests I have, is they're not just talking about, I mean, there's some which are a little bit more philosophical based, but most of them are like, have a go at doing this tomorrow, you know. And so yeah, we're going to do a reflection series which I'm hoping will fill up, you know. I'd like to get through all past 220 episodes or so of just people talking about them and how it affected their practice. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. It's one of my better ideas so far this year.
That's good. I look forward to seeing how that goes. And then in terms of, like, do you take a holiday? How do you do it live all the time?
Oh, I just love it. And now and again, if I'm abroad or somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi connection, but it's only about 2 or 3 in the last 5 years.
You've only missed 2 or 3 in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And someone else steps in, you know, literally, I think 3 maybe. No, for me, it's like everything in life, isn't it? You wake up in the morning and maybe, no, actually, no, I just look forward to them. Every single one, because for me, it's my CP. It's not just CPD, because that would imply it's just professional development. It's human development. I get so much out of my guests. And of course, everything they tell me, I'm thinking about and then applying on my own courses and my own education and teaching and stuff. So no, for me, it's maybe that goes back to the beginning of maybe why people do feel relaxed in it, and I manage to get the best out of people, because I just love it. It's just, I feel so honored and special and thankful for spending time with every single guest. Then so yeah, I always look forward to them. It's the highlight of my week sometimes.
I don't think you could do that many if you weren't enjoying it. I think
No, not at all.
you wouldn't be able to do it. But
And also doing
certainly
it live. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, once when we started from COVID, we were probably about 80, 90 people, because obviously people had loads of questions, and it was a great chance for members to actually ask those questions. And then as time's gone on, now sometimes we get maybe 10, 15 people joining us live. But one of the most common forms of feedback I get, and I'm grateful for everyone who sends feedback, is, oh, we can't join live because we're in clinic or this and that, but we do love the fact it is recorded live, because the conversation is just natural, it flows. It's not, if I had to edit it, I never edit it really. I might add some music at the beginning and maybe something a break in the middle, but generally it's just that, you know, the hour of conversation. But that's because the guests I have, like yourself, like Andy, you're not making stuff up. You're not talking from a script. You are just revealing to people what you're about. You know, your business is your life. So all my guests, just once they're in the right mood and they're settled down, they can just speak, and it's just clinical pearls of wisdom, as Jack Chew would say, just start pouring from their mouths. And it's great. It's wonderful. Yeah.
No, I think it's really positive. So it's a great thing. And it is genuinely lovely to see when people are really passionate and enjoy doing what they're doing, because everyone should be like that. It's not always as easy as that, but it's really good to see it. So, well, Matt, I really appreciate your time on this. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and you've given me a lot of things to think about as well. So I shall look forward to interacting with some of your content in the coming months. I look forward to those reflection pieces. That's is a good idea.
I think so. And thank you very much for having me along here. It's been great as well. And good luck with the book. I hope that's going well.
And you'll be in it now. You'll be in it. I've got a few things which I've already got in it. So there you go.
My life is complete.
I'm also going to just do a video of you whilst you're talking in that thing and just be like,
yeah, exactly. What a
See, anyway, mate. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate it.